welcome to Sunrise Day today. I'm Chamberlain Osun.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. It's 27 degrees here in Lagos. Welcome. I'm Ayo Makinde once again. And today is January 27, and it'll be, well, I'm sure that, you know, Chamberlain, sometimes when you hear traffic in Lagos, you say, oh gosh, not again. But yes, you know, it's like it's second nature, right? But it was a bit concerning this morning. Naturally, it's actually happening at the Kara Bridge. The beginning and the end, the joints are being repaired, necessitating a narrowing of the road for the repairs. And unfortunately, at some point earlier in the day, there were, you know, people using those inward Lagos have jumped to the other side using the outward Lagos route, one way, as we call it. And at some point, it became, you know, a bit troubling because now there were more and more vehicles using the alternative, the one-way, you know, path, slowing down traffic and almost causing a build-up of traffic for those going out of Lagos. It could have been a repeat of what happened, was it about a week ago, when the entire road was blocked inward and outward. Well, thankfully, it seems like it has eased a bit. We just want to call on the authorities, because there is a place where, you know, people segue from the main highway to join the alternative, what they are using as the alternative route, one way. I'm hoping that someone will ensure that that is forbidden and resisted. Maybe now, because we understand that at some point the road safety officials were not there, but policemen were there. There are even allegations that some of them were using it as some kind of toll gate for those who are violating the law. We hope that that doesn't happen again, and at least some communication will help from time to time. At least there is one local government or the other in that area. Chamberlain.
Well, look, sometimes these things can be demoralizing, I tell you.
Yeah. Because
you just wonder why it always appears as though this illegality appears to be second nature to a number of people. And if the security agencies are there, then they have to do the right thing. And by the way, if you're going through that, take some pictures, take videos, so that everybody can see what's going on. And then you call them out. That's the way some of these things should be done, because if it's just word of mouth, it's going to be a little challenging for people to actually say, well, this is what's going on. So, and speaking of which, Ayo, Osun State, the governor, he had a broadcast, and what he was speaking about appeared to be, it sounded like fables, you know, movie scripts to a lot of people. But it is actually happening in Oyo State about the local government, which we've talked about time and again, how we need to ensure that we do get it right. Even the president has spoken about the importance of local government, how they should conduct elections there, else you will not get allocations. But let's let you listen to part of what the governor said, and we will take it from there. Have a look.
For close to 1 year now, local government secretariats across Osun State have been under illegal occupation by the court-sacked APC chairmen and councillors, whose election was nullified by the Federal High Court, Osogbo, in November 2022, and affirmed by the Court of Appeal on the 10th February 2025, and again on the 13th June 2025. Their election was struck down because it was conducted in clear violation of the requirements of the law. I did not remove these APC chairmen and councillors from office. The court did. Since then, they have had no lawful mandate whatsoever. Yet, in brazen contempt of the law and in repudiation of democratic decency, they have refused to vacate the secretariats emboldened by the backing of the Nigerian police, as allegedly instructed by the former governor, Boyega Oyetola.
Goodness, you know, why do we allow these kinds of impunity just play out with reckless abandon? Because Of course, it was way longer, that broadcast. We just got a little clip for you to hear because he spoke about a number of things there. First is that their tenure elapsed October 22, 2025. Because after a lot of back and forth as to whether they were supposed to still be in office, court cases, the courts eventually sacked them, but they stayed on, they refused to obey the court order, and then their tenure has now validly lapsed on the 22nd of October. And now it appears as though they are seeking an extension of tenure. So you wonder, from where are they trying to manufacture all of this kind of attitude, this scenario that we see playing out in a democracy where it should not be? And he did say, just trying to be safe, when he says allegedly taking instructions from the former governor, who was the minister now of Blue Economy. So if this really is what's going on, then it leaves a lot to be desired, because the governor eventually also spoke about the UBA, who is handling the local government funds, also pandering to others, or quote-unquote instructions coming from the suspect is coming from the former governor, because he said the speaker has written to the bank showing them documents and details of persons who are supposed to be signatories, and they are yet to even obey. In fact, he went on to say that they are even transacting businesses contrary to the directive of the state and the local government chairman, who have been validly elected after they lawfully conducted elections. And the funds for the local government, he says, have not been released as of yet. And you wonder, are we in a jungle? Is this Jankara market? What really is going on here? Who is even giving these kind of instructions? Does it mean that the president is not aware of what is going on? Why are those funds even being held in the first place? What kind of examples do we seem to be setting when we just seem to perhaps do things the way we want? And then that of the police really, really bothers a lot of people, because if the police is aiding and abetting those councillors or local government chairmen whose tenure has elapsed, on what laws? What law is the police or anyone even relying on to continue occupying those positions after there has been a valid elections by the people? Are we still in a democracy? One needs to ask at this point in time, really, are you?
I absolutely agree with you. And one of the things that I find very, very interesting and encouraging about democracy is options. We have a lot of options. First of all, in this clip, you saw that the governor said allegedly. But further down, he made categorical statement. I mean, further on in the broadcast, just as Chamberlain said, it's way longer than that, made categorical statements and was asking for the president to intervene in the matter. I guess we wait to see. But I also believe that the governor has so much powers. Is the governor being arm-twisted by political influences? Every elected, validly elected and rightful local government chairman is entitled, at least they should be entitled to one policeman or the other. That's a validly elected local government chairman. I'm not talking about councillors. It's a local government chairman. So if they do not have local government chairman assigned to them, then we need to ask questions. Then another thing, Chamberlain, is the governor said, okay, the courts have done this, have done that, and he said it's been 1 year. I want to believe there should be a court case initiated by the Osun state government saying this hasn't happened, this needs to happen, and all of that. And all whoever, is supposed to be mentioned or attracted to the case or joined in the case ought to have been joined. I don't know whether such a thing exists, because if it does not exist, it raises questions as well. I also know that the governor should, unless that is not happening, should have regular security meetings. That is what we know, Chamberlain. So if those things are happening and the policemen are being used, by people who are not validly elected into office in Osun State, and the governor holds security meetings with people from the police in the state government. From time to time, they have security meetings. It's one of those other options that I'm wondering, how can that be? So yes, it's one thing to say it's an allegation, but altogether, it's also necessary to hear, hopefully, from the former governor, Oyetola, and who is now the Minister of the Blue Economy, which, by the way, we haven't been hearing anything about, and I hope we'll be able to hear from him from time to time. So those questions are there. Those options are there. I want to believe that calling on the president to intervene is a political solution that is being sought. But as the governor said, there are governance inhibitions that are happening, and they all fall at the table of the governor. I believe that the governor has a lot of powers, Chamberlain, and the governor himself should be able to take the bull by the horn. Political considerations are understood, the political implications are understood, but then there is a political class. And if the interest of Osun State is primary in the minds and hearts of all the people in Osun State, then they should give it priority. That's what I think, Chamberlain.
They doesn't want things to degenerate, because if they also get thugs to get in there, and then it will be free for all, and who knows what actions or they might play into certain persons' hands. So it's important that they also ensure that at least the peace is maintained, but at the same time too, they need to be called to order. You cannot continue this impunity where the grassroots governance is held by the, no, this cannot be allowed to keep going on. So we're hoping that perhaps escalate this if there's valid court order, and then they're even disobeying the court order. Look, that's the height of it all. That is the height of it all. Let's shift our attention now, incidentally, the blue economy, marine and blue economy. As a matter of fact, Nigeria has over 850 kilometers of coastline, yet the blue economy remains a shadow of its potential, contributing barely to our GDP. There are several questions. Where is the impact? Now you said you've not been hearing from the minister. What about the jobs, the revenue? Well, we're joined now to shed light on this matter, probably not heat, by Mr. Frank Ogunjemite, who is the president of the Africa Association of Professional Freight Forwarders and Logistics of Nigeria. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Yeah, good morning, and thanks for having me as well.
Well, there was a lot of expectations for this ministry when it was newly created. It appeared as though some have tanked the expectations now. So even if things are going on, not a lot of people can actually place their finger and say, well, we can thump our chest and say, this is what's happening. You will play in that sector. What's going on?
Well, say thanks to the Honorable Minister. A lot of things has been done, and thanks for the President as well to have created the ministry. You could have seen a kind of revolution in maritime industry. Why did I say that is this? Before now, we do have a Web Frontier taking up a custom job or this, but now we have a Blue Odogo platform which is created by Nigeria for Nigeria. And thanks for CG of Custom who has done that. So the issue of capital repatriation for the country is no more in vogue anymore. So that's one of the things. There you can say about the cabotage vessel fund, which probably we're going to increase the what they call national carrier of the country. The minister as well under the blue and marine economy, that's now evoked. The portal has been opened now that okay, people subscribe on it, and they can take up the national carrier. As big as we are in Africa, it's limited. We have the foreigners dominate the maritime industry, do a lot of things, unnecessary increments, exploitations. So with the ministry, a lot of things has begun to change, and I think the states will feel the impact very soon as well.
What kind of, in terms of those who were looking to see if that ministry haven't been created, would at least guarantee jobs? We haven't heard anything whatsoever about that.
To be sincere, a lot of things, like the one I told you about the cabotage vessel. Now, if this is properly take shape now, we're going to have a Nigeria's carrier vessel, a lot of things, and it will provide employment. That the freight shipment to Nigeria from China will be reduced. At the moment, we have a high cost of freight from the in and out, and that's...
What was it before? What is it now?
Well, before we used to have about $8,000, $9,000 for 40-feet container from China to Nigeria. But now you can see things becoming cheaper because they can see that, okay, this is coming on board. You know, any business without competition is not going to be palatable. And however, that's not even limited.
What do you mean competition? From the locals?
Yes,
and the
we do have the foreign carriers coming to Nigeria.
Do we have a foothold now?
We having it now because with what the minister is trying to do now since last year, now the hope is there, people is optimistic that now things is beginning to have a shape. And we have been feeling the impacts. And not only that, precisely to tell you, the lot of ministry which had not been in operations, they are beginning to jiggle up. Because the minister is, you remember the renewal agendas, they are on it that, okay, let's begin to take shapes. And people are feeling the impacts. And look at the cost of operations.
What impacts are they feeling?
That's what I'm saying. The cost of operations, for instance. Yeah. We do have a gridlock in the port that it takes you like 3 weeks before you can get your container in and out of the port. But now the gridlock has gone. Most of the extortion for shipping and terminal operator is no more anymore. And these are the body language of the ministers. However, now Nigeria, which is going to be the hub for the West Africa, of course it is, with the world, the government, what we have. But if the minister has not taken shape, and we have the gray law before you get your port out of your container out of the port, take you 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it's no more any. And look at what the customer just done now. That okay, time release studies. They want it to be limited like 2-3 days. You should get your container out of the port. Those are the impact of the ministry. And don't forget that the Ministry of Law and Marine, if the leadership is not in shape, all these things will not be improved.
In terms of exports, yes, coordination and organization, yeah, can you validly tell us then that if anybody wants to get there and get things done, you can go somewhere and see the steps, the processes you need to take, such that when you fulfill those processes, no one is going to ask you for anything extra? Where can we find that?
Where?
Is that in place or
yes,
not yet?
Well, it's in place.
Where is
to
it?
Be honest,
where can we find it?
No, we have a lot of impediments that affect both import and export. But I'm going to dwell on the export like you have come from that perspective. Why I'm saying that, before it's very difficult to go on export. One of the things I told you is gridlock. And now the gridlock has gone. So even if you have a perishable good, with short time you can get it out. Now in collaboration with the custom processes, the custom has tried to simplify the export process that is more easier for you. You can go. In fact, it's more easier. Because don't forget that the custom of today has gone automations. Of course, we still have some hindrances from the agencies.
But the ministry has not, with activities in the sector. They've not.
No, they are trying. For instance, though we do have an issue, but with the national single window being introduced and emphasized by the Ministry of Blue and Marine, I think things will be drastically, in fact, be improved.
Do you, for yourself, since you play in that sector, are you aware of any vision, the plan that the ministry wants to achieve? Because many who are watching from the outside don't seem to have it. They have no idea what's going on.
To be honest, the plan is very obvious for those who are so concerned in that area. Why I'm saying that is that if you used to operate in that sector before and you are now, they don't need to tell you before you see reflection that things is encouraging. Why am I saying that is that, for instance, the ministry has engaged the NIMASA, they engage the customs, engage all the economic regulators, and they are on their toes. Don't forget, about 2 weeks ago, there are probably to be increments from one of these shipping company, but because we credit to the ministers and the listing, and I'm telling you, there's no more increment. It's been suspended.
All right, Ayo.
Thank you, Chamberlain. You know, I'm interested in an aspect of the blue economy. One of the agencies that's been talking about it significantly is NIMASA. And it's on record that NIMASA claims that Nigeria has lost $1.5 billion to foreign marine insurers in just 3 years. And that's the official statement from NIMASA in March 2025. I mean, just imagine that we could keep that kind of resource in country. it will be significant. It begs the question then why people are wondering whether or not we're serious about doing something to jumpstart Nigeria's blue economy. You say things have been going on, but this one in particular, we're losing a lot. We have hemorrhaged in 3 years $1.5 billion to foreign marine insurers. Is it impossible for us to have marine insurers in Nigeria and keep the money at home?
Yes, thank you for the question. Yes, it's possible. And the government, they are on it. The ministers on it, the ministry, they are on it. They've started the back of the process on this. Because this is so disgusting, losing such money to foreigners, capital flights, for God's sake. So they are on this, and that's not even only been limited to the one. It is even being applied to what they call the indemnity insurance for even containers as well. That when you pay deposit to all the foreign company, they don't pay your deposit back, and when they are paying, they pay for 3 or 4 months, holding your money for no reasons. So the government, to be honest, has a back on that, and this is very much in place. And very soon, we see the results.
Well, the challenge really is we need to see. People need to be persuaded that indeed something is happening. To be honest, people were very, very excited about the fact that, okay, Nigeria now has a frontal effort at recovering resources from the potential that it has in the blue economy. For instance, we understand that Nigeria's blue economy has tremendous resources, tremendous opportunities. Nigeria is said to be eyeing something in the region of $3 trillion in the blue economy. But it's been almost 3 years, and one wonders whether or not, anything is really happening. Is it possible for you to say in specific terms, these are the things that have been done by the minister that you are aware of? You can't hold brief for the minister. These are the things that have been done specifically, and these are the benefits that have come out of it. How much, for instance, has been generated from the blue economy? What are the things Nigeria should be looking forward to? Where in it is something we can get from anyone?
Well, I cannot say precisely because I'm not the account guru how much it be generated, but I can tell you that the impact is so for the impact. And I want to tell you that Rome does not build in a day. And, obviously in that sector in Nigeria, we are having leadership problems. But when you have a leader that has a focus, not only for the interests of the citizens, you begin to feel the impact. And that's why I appreciate that the present government now, they are operating open door policies. That's where they can engage stakeholders. Of course, they can do better to improve this country. But, when things are God-rooted, it's when things have already been in state of embezzle before these people emerge. And as far as I'm concerned with the industry, I can see there's hope, and then the government will do well. So in terms of the figures, I cannot say precisely, but I think the hope is there. We're optimistic, and I think the government can do better as well.
What are the gaps you have seen that you believe, if blocked, will greatly help to fast-track development in that sector in our economy?
Yeah, one of the things the government has about is infrastructures and then policies. The government needs to embark on holistic policies to reform the industry. Because you do not just only make that policies, you try to enforce the policies. Engage the stakeholders, the ruthless people, the technocrats of the industry, that, okay, what is their view? What is their view on? And then you do not just make that, you begin to check on this policy, are they compliant or what? So with the focus of the government now, because I want to tell you that maritime is a catalyst of any country's economy. That's where you can make one of good money for the country. But if this sector is being neglected, there's going to be an issues. Before the evolutions of all the other minerals, and we have the potential as well. Not only in Nigeria, we can control all the Africas. And don't forget that I was telling somebody in a meeting yesterday, can we assess if ECOWAS is being successful or not? Then we have to look at the success of ECOWAS. Then we have to begin to Africa Free Trade Agreement. So if the government really want to reform this country, The money is there. A lot of things is a maritime to explore.
All right. We'll anchor at that point. Frank Ogonjamite is the president, Africa Association of Professional Freight Forwarders and Logistics of Nigeria. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're back in a moment, everyone. Don't go away. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Now, from allegations of a possible coup against the president to demolitions of property in Lagos, sparking questions about citizens' rights and housing and rising tension between FCT workers and the minister, Nigeria is facing a storm of political and social challenges. To help us unpack these issues and explore the legal implications, we're joined by human rights lawyer and senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Femi Falana. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, Shambali.
Well, yesterday, the Nigerian Army released a statement, which was titled Updates on Disciplinary Cases Involving 16 Officers Investigated for Indiscipline, Breach of Service Regulations. And then they reminded us of their previous statement on October 2025, where they had said that 16 officers were held for breach of service regulations. But interestingly, that October release, because, I mean, there were reports that said they were arrested on cases or allegations of coup plots, plotting to at least take out the president on Independence Day. The army flatly denied in that statement. They were categorical, saying no such thing exists. It was false. But in that release of yesterday, they then verified that, yes, it did happen. So looking at both statements, it leaves one wondering, even those who are supposed to be accused now, who are going to be accused, from the look of things now, can there still be fair hearing on this matter? When you said it didn't exist, now you say it does. What do we believe?
Well, in the first place, I think the media must be commended. And I think that was missing in the statement of the military officer that made the announcement yesterday. Should have commended the Nigerian media for exposing the plot. I think both the presidency and the military authorities reacted very hastily without verifying the reports. We were informed that this was a case of indiscipline. There was no coup attempt. And I think those were political statements. And again, yesterday, the military authorities ought to have apologized to Nigerians that we are, and people in authorities must learn to take us seriously as a people. If you had made a statement 3 months ago that there was no coup, in the course of your investigation, you now discover that this matter went beyond indiscipline. You ought to have apologized to the Nigerian people. This was what we said 3 months ago. We apologized for denying that there was a plot to overthrow the government. Now, after our investigation, we have indeed confirmed the media reports. So that would have been much more honorable. Because now, 3 months ago, there was no coup.
Yeah.
Yesterday, you are talking of...
No, it looks as if they lied to us, deliberately lied to us.
That's the implication. And we're no longer under the defunct military junta, where you just make announcements in matters of very serious, that have serious implications for the security of the country, for political stability and the rest of them. And I do hope that that apology will still be given. It's so important. Secondly, I had cause to make a statement on this matter 2 weeks ago. Because under the Constitution, you cannot detain military officers and police officers for more than 3 months. Going by Section 35 of the Constitution. And I think this is what has been done, to say, okay, we have complied with the Constitution, right? We are now going to go further, by having them tried
So are they going to, because from the look of things, if it's going to be court-martial, it will not be in a civilian court?
No, they won't be court. They cannot be court-martial. It's beyond the powers of a court-martial. When I made my statement, I did say, based on their earlier statement, if you are saying these people are involved in discipline, after, it's almost 3 months, you must take them to court. I mean, to a court-martial, or, in the case of, officers among them, so special court-martial. So but now, if you are talking of a coup, or attempt a coup, right, you either charge them with treason or treasonable felony, and that can only be tried under, in a court, in a federal high court, or, state high court, by virtue of Section 251 of the Constitution.
But did the army
set, 252 of the Constitution,
did the army set themselves up for a bad case when initially they said there was no coup? And then you came back and said, oh, because if the people say, look, you said there was no coup, we didn't do anything, now you're fabricating this against us.
Well, that may be part of the defense of the suspect. But again, you have to look at the quality of the evidence. I'm not sure the military authority will simply go out and say there was an attempt to overthrow the government if there was no attempt. I mean, from the media reports, which have now been largely confirmed, there was indeed an attempted coup.
But how is this, how do you think this is going to stand in the face of the law? Because does the law punish intent or the actual action? Because if they say they were planning, both of them.
Punished. Section 41 of the Criminal Code Act provides that anyone who forms an intention to remove the president of the country during his term of office is deemed to have committed treasonable felony. Right? But if it's the actual, the action
like mobilizing
to
troops.
The government, well, yes, mobilizing troops and moving maybe to the presidential palace, like the case of Benin, that is treason. That is covered by Section 37 of the Constitution, which provides for death penalty. But if it's an attempt, it's life imprisonment. I mean, I'm sure you will recall when the Babangida military junta charged some of us with treasonable felony in Gogoladagia. We made it clear. The late Chief Pawemi and I said, told the Chief Magistrate, no, this law is not meant to protect a military dictator. Because, and the judge said, Mr. Fowler, what do you mean? I said, my lord, the man has no fixed term of office. He was not elected by anybody. So he cannot be removed other than by a coup. So he cannot be removed by election. And that was what the lawmakers had in mind. So when you are dealing with a military dictator, and you know what General Babangida then did was to go and enact a special law, treason and treasonable offenses decree. So, but that was what we did tell the military authority. You can't charge me with treasonable felony. I mean, there's no way you can overthrow a military dictator by election. And that provision is saying during his term of office. If you were not elected for a 4-year period, you can't be talking of planning to remove you during your term of office. But in this case, but I think there was another statement made yesterday that the report was going to be sent to the president.
Yes.
No.
That's not the procedure.
No, it's not the business of the president to get involved in investigation reports of criminal offenses in the country. That report has to go, or should go to the office of the Attorney General, who should prosecute, because we're talking of treason.
But with this kind of cases, I mean, there are several historical cases, and you see a certain pattern. But in this case, there are several questions. For instance, people wonder, can, assuming a battalion of Brigade of Guards, a unit, can that be sufficient to organize a coup? Is it not supposed to be across certain board? Because there has to be that organization and that collaboration within several units there to actually succeed in that country.
Chamberlain, we don't have the details yet.
Well,
so we cannot speculate as to the extent of mobilization for the attempted coup, right? But what is important for me, and that was the point I made 2 weeks ago, you have no right to detain people without trial. We have not been told they are going for trial, but they must be allowed access to their lawyers, which have been denied, access to their family members and doctors, which has been denied. Those who are not involved, because up to 42 people were arrested. Now, those who have not been indicted should now be released without any further delay.
All right. Ayo's got questions as well before we go to Lagos.
Thank you very much, Chamberlain. I was just checking, Mr. Falana, because I've seen reports where the military said at no time did we use the word coup. So I was going to ask you whether there is a difference between attempting an attempted coup or a plot to overthrow government. Legally speaking, is there a difference?
It means the same thing. You know, if you plan a coup, the purpose is to overthrow the government. So whether you call it a plot or a coup d'etat, it means the same thing. The removal of a government, the planned removal of the government in power.
Okay, well, so where do you see this going really? Because already, as you know, the military has already decided, the DHQ has already decided that they're going to face a military panel. And you are saying that, you know, that may not be the appropriate way to go legally. Are you saying there's a likelihood that the military either is unaware of the process or they're just going, you know, first of all professional before going civil?
Well, you know, we're under a democratic government. And as far as the Constitution is concerned, we have to take them to a high court. It cannot be a court-martial. They are not trying to remove a military dictator. It's an attempt to remove an elected government, a constitutional, to disrupt the constitutional arrangement. So they have to be taken. And there's nothing new here. In the Second Republic, we have the case of Mandara and the state. You know, that was the businessman in Maiduguri who was alleged to have planned to mobilize some troops to remove the Shagari government. The case was, however, it was tried and jailed, I think, 15 years by the Federal High Court. But by the time the matter went to the Supreme Court, it was said that that court had no jurisdiction at the time. But now the Constitution had been amended to confer exclusive jurisdiction on the Federal High Court and the State High Court.
Okay.
In terms of, I mean, in other words, if it's a state matter, if it's an attempt to remove a governor, you may have to go to a high court of a state. But if it's it has to do with the president, it's the Federal High Court.
You know, you referenced General Babangida earlier, the government of General Babangida at the time.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I remember also, I think there were 1 or 2 coup attempts on that government. And if I recall correctly, in both cases, I don't recall there was any trial. They were just summarily executed. And it would seem like...
there was a trial. Okay. There was a trial. There was a military tribunal, or a court-martial, you know, put in place to try them. So they were not just executed.
Okay.
In the first case, in the case of General Vatsa, they were arrested in December 1985. At that time, the existing law in the country was the Criminal Code Act. So General Babangida discovered, you know, if we tried them, you know, under that law, because there wasn't much confirmation of the attempt, so they might get away. So in February 1996, General Babangida made a law and had them tried retrospectively, which was like a case of premeditated murder.
So
in the case of Oka, there was already the 1986 decree that was used to try.
Yeah. So let's just say that first one.
In both cases, they were court-martial.
Yeah. Let's just say that first one would have happened anyway, whether there was a law or not. So I said that or referenced that to ask this question. Now, these 16 officers, what rights do they still have? Because taking them to court, if I understand it correctly, means that at least they still have some rights. One of them could be right to fair hearing. What do you expect would come out of this if the military already carried out its investigation and have these valid cases? What are the likely outcomes for you? And what are the implications for the federal government?
No, as far as the Constitution is concerned, you can now say that there is reasonable suspicion that there was an attempt to remove the government, Section 35 of the Constitution. We now proceed to Section 36, right of fair hearing. They now have to be taken to a court. They will have their counsel. The state may decide to prosecute them, right? And if the state is going to prosecute them, they will have their day in court. The implication politically is not very good for the country. It does confirm that there is political instability when you talk of a coup in a country. And that is why we have to try as much as possible. And I'm talking of the government to study the region, West Africa in particular, African countries in particular, to find out and study what has engendered political stability in some countries. In West Africa, for instance, Cape Verde and Senegal have never had a coup. Ghana, which also enjoys relative political stability, has had uninterrupted political system since 1992. And so we need to find out, right? The government must comply with the rule of law. The government must respect the human rights of the people. The government must promote political, you must allow political pluralism. Opposition parties must be allowed to operate. It's key. And then you must address the economic crisis. The business of allowing the IMF and World Bank to run our economies cannot be accepted. So poverty must be addressed. And that is why in those countries where you have had coup in West Africa, people are trooped to the street. Because they've lost confidence in the civilian government.
Mr. Fala, there are
a few other class here.
Yes. My apologies. There are a number of other issues we want to take you up on. And I know that Chamberlain is going to take you up on issues about Abuja, so let me take you up on the issues concerning Lagos. As far back as the 50s into the 60s, I remember there was a relocation, an eviction of people from the old Lagos, the slum area of Lagos Island at the time under the Osun Mbadiwe government, to what is now known as Surulere. They called it New Lagos at the time. And so there was eviction and there was a replacement for the people. In the case of Morocco, people are still wondering that, yes, there was a demolition by the Rasaki government, but then at the end of the day, another estate, lush estate, is standing on it now. So it's one of the questions people are asking. In this Makoko and a number of other cases like that in Lagos, what should have happened, in your opinion, before these attempts have been made? You have spoken copiously about what the Supreme Court says and all of that. But what should have happened if the government says they are trying to protect the lives of the people living in the slums, and there are several other slums in Lagos? What, in your opinion, should have happened before these evictions and demolitions took place by the government, which is now being explained by the government, by the way?
Yeah. Number one, it has to be recognized by the government that the people of Nigeria are entitled to enjoy their right of housing. If people are living in slums, human beings are living in slums, you cannot tear gas them in the dead of the night. You cannot move bulldozers there to render them homeless. You must create an alternative accommodation for them. That is what the law provides for. There are decisions, of course, on this matter. And the case of the First Republic that you refer to, you know, these are lessons for us. But since the days of the military, particularly with respect to Morocco, what the regimes in Lagos have done, military and civilian regimes, is to wage a war against the people. There is nobody who is supposed to urban development or urban renewal program, they call it. But you must take cognizance of the poor and vulnerable segments of the society and then create alternative houses for them so that you do not displace them and render them homeless. As it is currently going on in Lagos, it's a criminal offense to eject a tenant without a court order. In Lagos, it's a criminal offense to use force to remove anybody from a house. In Lagos, those are the laws of the state. That is apart from the provision of the Constitution, that all actions of the government shall be humane. So you cannot move to a side, tear gas the people in their presence while they are running at a scatter. You demolish their houses, including schools and hospitals. Babies are alleged to have died in the process. Some pregnant women have lost their lives and their babies. So it is totally inhuman. It's cruel and brutal. It's not allowed under the Nigerian Constitution. So the government, and in the case of Lagos, the Supreme Court has said, sorry, you have no control over inland waterways. Therefore, if you are going to remove people in the waterfront, you must come to Abuja, discuss with the federal authorities. And part of that discussion, or those discussions, will include finding alternative accommodation to those who are likely to be adversely affected. Unless you do this, all the demolitions are illegal. In the case of Morocco, and we made the point, you say Morocco, the people there were, we live in a place that was a danger to the society. What did they do? They seized the place, filled the place, and distributed the land to the rich. It's part of Lekki today. But you know what we did? You know what we did? There were 2 estates being built by the Jakonde regime. That was the last regime in Lagos. They really thought of the poor. I mean, Jakonde in 4 years built 30,000 house units, affordable. And the poor bought these houses. But what we have first said then, even when the government says they are building houses in Lagos, they are building houses for the rich, which honest civil servants cannot afford. But what happened? So we discovered that 2 estates, Ikota and Abesan, were being developed by the government. So those who were displaced moved there and took possession. And the government wanted to eject them. So we rushed to court. You demolish the houses. On what ground can you send them packing? Yes, the court said, but Mr. Fallon, don't you think you are encouraging illegal squatters? I said, no, my lord. They turned them to squatters. In any case, we're not saying they own the houses, but before they can be ejected, the government must give statutory notice. The government must go to court. Nobody can evict a Nigerian without a court order. Well, and the court agreed with me.
Part of the response for the Lagos government is that they had engaged and notified the residents for about 5 years, and that the law requires them, according to what they said, to be at least 250 meters away from power lines. But many of those structures were constructed within restricted zones. And so it's not out of place. I mean, people can say, we just showed up there out of the blues. Does that fly with you?
No, they have to go to court. If I refuse.
To get an order?
Yes! Because you cannot be the accuser, the witness, the prosecutor, and the judge. And that is the provision of the law. You cannot eject a tenant. A landlord cannot eject a tenant without a court order. It's a criminal offense in Lagos. Under their land grabbing law, there is a law, land protective order, property protection law in Lagos. Under that, you cannot use force to eject, to remove anybody from his house or from his property. So that's the law.
So before we go, let's talk about the FCT. You've also been in industrial matters, with labor unions, so you're well versed in this kind of matter. Yesterday, here in the FCT, we saw residents, well, yeah, they're residents, but workers in the FCT just engaged in what appeared to be that they were trying to chase the minister of FCT. I think they say he had accessed the premises while he was sealed and they were in court. And so there's a bit of confusion concerning what is the legal process, what should have played out in this matter.
Well, you know, if you want what they call industrial harmony, which is difficult to obtain in a capitalist society, you must learn to respect the rights of workers. And workers don't simply embark on a strike. They normally give notices. They normally invite the government to engage in a dialogue with them. But in this environment, we run a government that believes in impunity. Nobody can challenge our authority. And therefore, I have no business engaging in any form of dialogue. And this is what leads to strikes. In this instance, like others, the government must be humble to respect the rights of... It's not a business of going to court to get an injunction. No, we've gone beyond that. Because the workers now believe that you use the courts to frustrate their rights to better conditions of service. And in this particular instance, the Minister of FCT will have to come down from his Olympian height to engage the workers in a productive dialogue. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult. And sometimes they encourage workers to embark on a definite strike. And sometimes you have solidarity strike. The Nigerian Labour Congress has already warned that other unions may be mobilized to join in the strike. And it's not good for the country. I mean, this is the capital of Nigeria. So we must learn to respect the rights of workers. We must also learn to comply with agreements signed with workers. And once you can do that, and then you must recognize that a union, unlike, a few months ago, Dangote refinery said unionization is not allowed. That was a right that had been won, even under the colonial regime. So we must understand that we are now approaching a democratic system of government that also respects the rights of our people.
That's a good place to anchor. Mr. Femi Falana, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Well, that wraps it up today on the program. We do thank you all for watching. We will be back tomorrow. So, goodbye. I'm Chamberlain Osun.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day. Business Morning is on the hour. Stay with us.